What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be a banner review for the Mythic banner that we're getting tomorrow with Altina as the Mythic hero. So I was really not expecting her. A lot of people, including me, were expecting Liv because he is the creator of Ether Raids and Book 3 has already been ended. So a lot of people were expecting him, and it seems like he's probably not gonna be a Mythic hero, which is kind of weird because, like I said, he made Ether Raids. Because they're probably going to be trying to release him next month and just get done with Book 3 units and then move on with some other Mythic heroes, because the next Mythic banner we're going to be getting is in January. So Altina is an Astra Mythic hero which boosts your attack. She's going to be giving you plus 5 HP and plus 3 attack, and she is a sword flying unit. Yes, she is a flying unit. It might not look like it, but she does float. Just as an Astra hero, she does have better matchup against Thracier. Thracier just absolutely gobbles up Naga, but Altina can Vantage Sweep and she does have the color advantage against her. And speaking of Thracier, her voice actress Lizzie Freeman is also the part of the game made by today's sponsor, Path of the Midnight Sun. This game was originally a famous Fire Emblem hack made by Alfred Kamen, and he's actually a subscriber and a friend of mine. Some of you might actually recall this Fire Emblem hack, and after being cancelled in 2017, it came back a few days ago as a fully fledged indie game. It features live 2D animations, a complex interaction between strategic RPG elements and visual novel elements, and even a fully orchestrated soundtrack accompanied by professional voice actors like Thracier's voice actress, of course. Its Kickstarter campaign has reached 1/3 of its goal, and this game is to be released in late 2020 on Steam and Nintendo Switch if this campaign is successful. And I think it's really cool that someone from our own Fire Emblem community who has made hacks has established his own indie studio and is working on a full-fledged game. So if you find this interesting, then please consider supporting their campaign in the description down below. And now let us continue with our banner review. So Altina isn't really like a spoiler unit, I would say. She just appears in a flashback, basically. She's got Ragnar plus Alondite, and no, she did not murder Ike and Black Knight for that. She is the first wielder of these weapons. So this weapon has got 10 might, it has got distant counter built into it, which makes sense because Ragnar and Alondite both have that. However, the extra effect is that she can attack twice in both phases, so this is basically a dual phase brave effect. So it's similar to Reinhardt's Master Sword, or I guess Legendary Leaf's Master Bow, which we just got last month in that kind of dual phase brave effect. So that makes her really powerful. You don't really have to invest into her with distant counter like you would have to with Keaton and Reinhardt, so that is pretty insane. Her special is Twin Blades. I don't think this is gonna be inheritable special, because how is a Lance unit gonna have a special called Twin Blades? I don't know. I think it's probably going to be exclusive. So this boosts damage by 40% of her resistance, and she does have pretty good resistance, as you will see, and disables non-special skills that can reduce damage by X%. So basically it is trying to counter Brave Ike's Irvine, stuff like Deflect Seals, Kagero's Dart, you know, weapons like those. It just ignores that kind of damage reduction on them, so she can absolutely murder Brave Ike through his Irvine. She doesn't really care. She is the original wielder of Ragnar, and she's gonna show him that. So this is probably gonna be decreasing the usage of Brave Ike as a frontline infantry pulse unit in Ether Raid's defense, because she is gonna be used as an offense unit, so that could be done. But like most of the time, Brave Ike's job is just to provide the frontline support and just to provide the infantry pulse support, and not always like Altina is gonna be able to go out there and Vantage Sweep the entire team, because there's probably gonna be some kind of hardy bearing unit in the back line of the team. But still, it does completely counter those kinds of weapons which can have damage reductions. Her slotted skill is definitely an exclusive skill Ashera has chosen. It neutralizes effective against flying bonuses, so she doesn't really care about her flying weakness as long as she's got the skill equipped. And if she's adjacent to a beast or a dragon ally, or if she's not adjacent to any kind of ally, she gets +6 attack and +6 defense during the combat. So simply, she doesn't want to be near a human if she wants to get this kind of buff. And it's a pretty cool reference to Degency and so on, who were the other chosen heroes. So I really like this kind of reference. I guess if Degency does come into the game, he's probably going to have a skill similar to this, where it could nullify the dragon effective damage. So I think that could be something if he ever comes into the game, of course. And she's got Vantage as her slot B skill, which goes extremely well with a distant counter weapon that can attack twice in both phases. So she's just pre-built as a Vantage Sweeper, which is really good for Ether Raids offense. As I've stated many times in my videos before, I'm a big fan of using Vantage strategies in Ether Raids. I use it for both of my accounts, so having a pre-built Vantage unit as the offense unit is going to be pretty good, and the fact that she provides attack is also really helpful. Her slot skill is Attack, Defense, Oath. This can just increase her attack and defense. I wish this was attack rest oath because she could get more damage out of her special, but in any case you are probably going to be trying to replace this with defense smoke because you could easily buff up her attack or defense with like tactic skills or just with other skills. So defense smoke could increase the damage output if she's going to be acting as a Vantage Sweeper. So that's Altina, our Astra unit. I think that she's definitely better than Naga because she can like do more offensively and like do Vantage sweeping. But the thing is that Naga provides defense. So if you are someone who uses a lot of super tank strategy and just a lot of tanks in Astra season of Ether Raids, then you shouldn't really pull for her because you cannot really give up on the defense which Naga can provide you. Altina is much suited for the teams which like to run Vantage Sweepers because she can provide that attack and she can act as a Vantage Sweeper herself. She doesn't really provide any kind of other additional support like Naga can with Divine Fang at least. So that's that. Like the Oath skill is only going to be applying the buffs to herself. So that's what I think about Altina. Naga just completely sucks in Astra honestly when you compare her to Air. And that's why I think like Air is the best mythic hero we have got. Even after 1 year of the release of like mythic heroes in general. But Altina is going to be slightly better than Naga because she has got more offensive power obviously. Can deal with a lot of the threats with Vantage sweeping. But once again, if you're going to be using tanks, then getting the defense from Naga is going to be important for you. You cannot let go of that 5 defense in favor of 3 attack. That 3 attack is going to be really useful if you use Vantage sweeping because you need all of the attack as you could possibly get. So in that case, like she's going to be really useful to you. Being a Vantage Sweeper inherently comes with the weakness of being really susceptible to Hardy Bearing users, Myogi daggers, Summer Mikaya's weapon, and Fire 2 weapon users, Dazzling Staff units, stuff like that. And your main way of getting around that is sniping that kind of Hardy Bearing unit. And if there are multiple units with those kinds of weapons, then it's going to be really hard for you to get around that kind of team. But still, it's manageable. I've been using Vantage strategy for like almost a year now. I really enjoy it a lot and it does work decently well. I'm personally probably going to run like 1 Naga and 1 Altina. I'm not going to be trying to pull like 2 Altinas. That just takes way too much orbs. So overall, I think that she's going to be a pretty good unit. So let's take a look at what her stats could be. This is just a speculation once again. So she's going to be taking out this Axe Knight. You have to keep in mind that she is not quad attacking this guy. And this is an Axe Knight who has got 16 speed, so Altina is super slow, and she also receives the -5 penalty from her weapon, so she's gonna be pretty slow. And here she's gonna be taking on this bow fighter, and she's gonna be triggering her special, and she does 14 points of extra damage, so we could tell that she's probably got somewhere around 35 to 37 resistance. I'm gonna go with 36 in the middle, so that's what I think her resistance is gonna be. With 30 defense, I think that's pretty decent. She does get more defense from her Slotty and Slotty skill, and she does have decent resistance as it is, so that could give her a good mixed bulk. And I think she's going to be having high attack at 39 base attack, somewhere around that, and really low speed as I said. So that's the stat spread I'm expecting out of Altina. And now let's move on to the other heroes that we have from this banner. So the first unit we see is Fjorm. Fjorm is a pretty decent tank actually, but she doesn't really have much attack, really lacks the oomph to do a lot of damage, but regardless of that, she's a fantastic tank to be used in light season and Ether Raids when the water and light season are coinciding. She has really high resistance. Ice Mirror is also pretty good for dealing with ranged units, so pretty decent tank overall. As for fodder, she doesn't really have anything other than shield pelts, which is pretty niche for the most part. Drive attack is probably going to be present on Echidna when she gets demoted. Attack defense bond is present on Rutger, so it doesn't really have a lot of value as a fodder, unfortunately. Legendary Lyn is definitely the contender for one of the worst legendary heroes in the game, unfortunately. Her best usage is probably going to be coming out of like light season where she could tank some mages, because she does have recent resistance and she does have weapon strangle advantage against threats like Philia and Reinhardt, so there she could be used, but that's pretty much it. Her base kit and her stat spread don't really do her too many favors, unfortunately, so she doesn't really work out all that well as a colored archer. And she also doesn't have much value as a fodder other than like speed tactic. That's pretty much it. And she's gonna be having that value until we get like speed tactic as a sacred seal or something, because it's probably gonna be happening soon, I hope. But yeah, she doesn't really have value as a fodder and doesn't really work too well as a unit, unfortunately. The next unit we have is legendary Marth. He also doesn't have too much value as a fodder. At least Fjorm has got shield pulse, which can be useful with certain builds, but I'm not a big fan of infantry flash all that much. And attack speed bond is present on Louise. Overall, like, compared to all of the competition going on in these sword infantries, Marth is definitely one of the better sword infantry units that we have got in the game. He does face a bit of competition with legendary Roy because Roy has got slightly better resistance. He's got bonus doubler as a skill. He also has a weapon which can slay dragons, but it also has distant counter built into it. So Marth can function kind of like Roy if you give him like distant counter, because he already has bonus doubler built into his weapon. But one edge Marth has got is having Binding Shield and Fire Emblem as a special, which does scale off on his speed and can provide support in the form of buffs to your team. Binding Shield is definitely pretty helpful in something like Arena Assault when you're facing like full-on dragon team. So there he could be pretty useful, and overall he's a really competent sword infantry unit with pretty decent stat spread. The only flaw is that he does face competition from legendary Roy and doesn't have as high of a resistance that you would like him to have. And after Marmar we have got legendary Tiki. In my opinion, like, she has got a bit better as a fodder because we have got Bantu in the 3-star 4-star pool who can provide Fierce Stance. So you could inherit that and then use her for Fierce Breath and Bold Fighter 3. So just inherit both of those skills to an armor unit, maybe someone like Zelgius or Black Knight. So there you could use her better as a fodder now thanks to Bantu, which is a bit messed up actually. So Tiki is just a 180 BSC armor dragon with a pretty balanced stat line. She does have dual weakness against armor effective and dragon effective weapons, which can be pretty annoying actually when you use her, but mostly her balanced stat line could be useful in many game modes. She could be used in Arena, of course, whenever she's a bonus unit, so that could be helpful because she's a 180 BSC unit. And in Ether rates, I guess you could use her in the light season so that you can increase her resistance. She does have good defense, but you will have to watch out for armor effective and dragon effective weapons. She can function as a dual phase unit. She does have adaptive damage on her weapon, also has distant counter built in. So overall a pretty good unit, but does have her flaws in dual weakness and also poor movement. And then we have got Duma, probably the contender for one of the worst, if not the worst mythic heroes that we have got in the game. Duma is mainly going to be used in Ether Raid's defense, and regardless of how good or bad he is, a lot of people still use him because he does give you the lift reduction. So still he's going to be used, but compared to someone like Thracier, who's also an Anima mythic hero, Thracier is superior because she can be more threatening offensively than Duma. Duma does have poor movement. Duma is pretty powerful, but it's really easy to play around him. And the upheaval can actually work in your enemy's favor, especially if you have like two Dumas. You could just make sure that your enemy has entered into the vantage range with their vantage sweeper. Ironically, outside of Ether Raids, he's not really all that bad of a unit. He does have bulk and does have power, being the god of strength, of course. But overall, like, not really the best mythic hero that we have got. Still, with over the time with changes to Ether Raids and with Ether Raids defense rewards, the meta has definitely changed quite a bit with people using two mythic defense heroes like Duma. For that, he's useful, even though Thracier does do the job much better. Duma doesn't really have too much value as a fodder because defense res solo isn't really all that good of a skill in my opinion, and Bold Fighter is present on so many armor units. It's not necessarily a very rare skill to get, even though it's locked to 5-star units. The next unit we have is Bridal Fjorm. Definitely a 10 out of 10 unit, really unique unit in the game. She can shut down the assist skills of the enemy team by inflicting isolation effect, and that also includes dancers, which is a huge thing because if you shut down dancers on your enemy's team, then their like defense team becomes much easier to predict and play around with. She can also shut down stuff like rally traps, and overall, like, she's really useful for Ether Raid's offense. And over the months, like, Bridal Fjorm has kind of forced defensive teams to stack more HP on their dancers, stuff like Sylvia or Ninian, so that they can prevent being shut down by Bridal Fjorm. And Bridal Fjorm can also provide you the sudden panic support if you do decide to run that. So along with providing you the sudden panic support, you can also shut down dancers and assist skills in ether rates, and that is incredibly useful. Definitely a 10 out of 10 unit. Drown orders, in my opinion, is a pretty useful skill that you could run on your flying dancers, and we definitely have quite a bit of flying dancers around. You could use it offensively in your favor, and you could also use it in ether rates defense to just make the movement of your team unpredictable and just to keep them together. So definitely has a bit of value as a fodder too. And then we've got James Buchanan Yarnes, as I like to call him. So he's a pretty decent Gale Force unit because of Bunny Fang, and he already comes with Gale Force. So his Bunny Fang can act as a special spiral basically, but it can also work with Gale Force, which the regular special spiral cannot. So that could make him into a good Gale Force unit. He already has escape route, so you could just Gale Force and get out of there, just kind of a hit and run strat. But the problem is that he doesn't have reduced cooldown on his Gale Force. There are many Gale Force units that you could get from 3-star 4-star pool who can have Gale Force as a 4-turn cooldown special because of the cooldown reduction from their weapon. And that's really useful because you could run something like Heavy Blade on your slot A and then run Heavy Blade on some other Gale Force unit, and that is really helpful in constructing a Gale Force team. And you can find alternatives with similar Gale Force units. And he can also act as a mini Ares, I guess, because of the special spiral built into his weapon. He does have 35 base attack. As for fodder, he does have attack speed solo and Gale Force, which you could inherit at the same time, so that's useful. Summer Laevatein does have really high attack, so she could function as a vantage sweeper or even just a really powerful nuke with something like a Blade Tomancer weapon. She also has a bit better defense than you would expect out of a mage, but really poor speed at 16, so she's gonna get doubled by pretty much everything. And despite her defenses, low speed can be detrimental in her survival, and mainly you're gonna be using her as a nuke. And even with mirror impact, she could get doubled back by the enemies because her speed is so low that many enemies that are running Vengeful Fighter, Quick Riposte, stuff like that can just override mirror impact by winning the speed check from her. She also has a super boon in attack, so if you get her, she can be a really powerful nuke for your Flyermum team. And as for fodder, she does have mirror impact, which is a high scoring skill in arena. It's also a good skill in general to be used on a lot of units. Even in ether rates defense, you could use that on your mages and stuff like that. So pretty useful as a fodder. Defense res link is present on Sigrun, so it's not really having that much of a value anymore, but mirror impact is a valuable skill. Summer Gunnthra is a fast dagger cavalier. We don't really have too many of those. Her main selling point is basically her speed. She does have decent 33 base attack, but she doesn't really have too much bulk. And her base kit is kind of underwhelming. It doesn't really have too much value as a fodder. She does have Rally Defense Plus, but it's mainly going to be used for arena scoring, and at that point, it doesn't really matter what kind of rally skill you run, you're just going to be using it for scoring. Either its offense skills are just really bad and inconsistent, so that's definitely not worth foddering her for. And Disarm Trap can be useful if you have it on your air, I guess, and even Gunnthra herself can use it pretty well because she's a cavalry unit, does have that movement. But not every team needs to disable traps, and you can still like test traps manually just by smiting units or just by dancing units. If you're running skills like Desperation, Vantage, Escape Route, Wings of Mercy, stuff like that, then the bolt traps are actually useful in your favor, so you don't really want to disarm them. So overall a decent unit, but doesn't really have too much value as a fodder. And even her weapon, in my opinion, like something like Broadleaf Fan is going to be much better from Summer Lilina than Tropical Treats weapon, which she has got. Next we have got Sothis. Sothis is a pretty good dragon unit. She does have the weapon which can nullify the effective against dragon bonuses, so that gives her a pretty big niche, being able to avoid dragon slayers. And she also has this encounter built into her weapon and adaptive damage. Serious or special is scaling off the speed. Serious or special does scale off based on her speed by 30% and can also heal her up, so can add to her longevity. She overall does have good stat spread, like offensively and also defensively, but the problem with her is that you cannot really bless her, so you cannot really use her in Ether Raid's offense without losing some lift. But outside of that, she can be useful in other game modes too. As for fodder, she's got Time Pulse, which is the skill which only she has got. It could be useful with some specific builds, and attack speed solo is also a thing which you could fodder off for. Astrum does have Wrath, so you don't really want to fodder off for Wrath. Overall a pretty good unit, and because she's a dark mythic hero, she could be used in Aether Raid's defense for lift reduction, and she's not really all that bad there. The thing with her adaptive damage is that air does have mystic boost, so if you're going to be facing airs, they don't really care about the adaptive damage, and air does have pretty good resistance. She can work up pretty decently as a frontline unit. She does pack power, and she does have the speed to deny follow-ups, has decent bulk too. She can also be used as a vantage unit in Aether Raid's defense. And overall, the immunity to dragon affected weapons is definitely pretty useful. The last unit we have in this banner is legendary Julia. She's got really high attack, and she can function as a mage tank with her high resistance. Light and Dark, her exclusive skill, can ignore visible buffs of foes, and she can also inflict -2 debuff to all stats of the enemies, and also just disable the adaptive damage. And she can hit really hard because of Virtuous Naga's secondary effect, where she just needs to have more attack than the enemy, and if she does have that, then she gets +6 attack and +6 resistance during the combat, and it's also a dragon effective weapon. As for fodder, once again, Mirror Impact is a skill you could fodder her off for. And Attacker's Oath is also another skill, which is rare. I don't really think that these oath skills are too game breaking, or these types of skills which you really need to pull for. So she does have value as a fodder, mainly because of the impact skill. Laevatein also has that impact skill. And overall, red color is stacked on this banner. You could get Sothis, you could also get Altina, which is the new Astra offensive mythic hero. Legendary Marth is also someone you could get if you haven't already got him. Legendary Marth could be a dud for some people, even though he's a good unit, because he doesn't really provide anything for fodder. Blue is also a pretty good color, having Legendary Tiki, Legendary Julia, and Fjorm. Green is looking like the weakest color on this banner. Legendary Lyn isn't really all that good. Yarne is a good Gale Force unit, but as I said, there are many other good Gale Force units which you could easily build up and not really go after him. Colorless is also pretty decent, mainly because of Bridal Fjorm. If Bridal Fjorm was not in colorless, then it would be much weaker. And Bridal Fjorm is just really useful, as I mentioned before. So if you're looking for some Aether Raid stuff, then red color is to go for with Sothis and Altina. You also have Bridal Fjorm and Duma in the colorless pool if you do want to use Duma for your defense team, and Bridal Fjorm is just really useful for offensive use. So overall, a pretty decent banner, but you have to keep in mind that we're probably going to be getting Farfetch heroes, or I guess Brave Redux heroes next month. Book 4 units next month as well, and next month's banner is going to be featuring Air, Naga, and Thracier. So once again, more Aether Raid stuff. So that's just something you have to keep in mind, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like. It is going to be helping me tremendously. And if you haven't already, then make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem Heroes content and also Three Houses content. And please be sure to hit the notification bell and click on all so that you can always get the updates to my videos whenever I upload. Because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Goddess's voice in Sanaki's head. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.